Sometimes men can be confusing as hell. I'm just going to put it out there because I know many of you have experienced it where you don't understand what he's thinking, you don't understand what he wants. He may not always be straightforward about it, and it can become downright confusing. And what can add to that in some situations, and I explained this in a previous video about when men get too sexual too early, how sometimes men have experience where when they don't make a move, it gets misinterpreted as they're not interested. And I'm bringing that up because sometimes the confusion is you're going out with this guy, you're hanging out with him, but he's not making any physical moves on you. And I'm not saying that there aren't plenty of women who would love that scenario, but I know that for some, that can either be conveyed as or interpreted as he's not that serious or he just wants to be friends. All right. Now, listen, there are various reasons why men now, because, we talked about why they move too fast, but this is them moving a little slow. There's various reasons why men move slow. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you an important message because what I'm concerned with is sometimes we get too caught up in trying to analyze situations. And in trying to analyze and interpret, we can misinterpret. We can diagnose the situation incorrectly and mishandle it. Let me explain some of the signs where, again, the guy likes you, he's into you, but he's not making that physical move. He's not trying to progress things in the way that maybe you're used to. And before I say the first one, let me just mention some of the things you hear may apply to your male best friend. I'm laughing because, listen, some of y'all don't want to believe your friend has feelings for you. And none of these signs are an automatic, and I'll explain more at the end. But they are signs to look deeper into. So number one is he's always initiating communication. All right. One thing I can say about most men or most situations is that the willingness to talk and to communicate at the very least says he enjoys you. He likes you. All right. And though there are some scenarios where I have seen this firsthand, men enjoyed a woman's conversation and genuinely had no interest romantically in her. That can happen. But typically, he does have interest because what men don't tend to give women they're not at all interested in is their time and attention. All right? At the very least, it's sparingly. It can be very inconsistent. But when they are communicating and they're initiating communication, they're trying to engage, that says a lot. So that's a good sign that he is into you. But then we move things along because it doesn't just stop at him initiating communication. A big next sign, and I believe these two need to go hand in hand, is that he wants to see you. Okay? Now, here's why this is so important. Again, I have seen situations where a man can enjoy your conversation and it really be about friendship. It could be that he's bored. I think there's this assumption or perception that only women love to have conversation as if there aren't men like this that exist, and they do. But when he takes it a step further and wants to see you and tries to create opportunities to see you, whether it be dates, and again, because he's moving slow or moving cautiously, he may not be calling them dates. So don't expect them to flat out say that because he may be afraid. He may be afraid that of your rejection, you not being mutually interested. And of course, these points I'm giving will vary depending on the specific dynamic. Because if you're already officially, quote unquote, dating and getting to know him, and he's already engaging with you, then he is more likely to call it a date. If your dynamic is that male friend or acquaintance who is engaging with you a lot, constantly initiating communication, and now wants to always find reasons to see you, he won't call it a date because he doesn't want to scare you off. But he's still trying to find ways to be in your presence. Another reason why it's important for me to mention wanting to see you is because in today's world, where things have gotten very digital and there's a lot more long distance relationships, long distance, getting to know each other, I'm finding more and more women falling into the potential trap of dating, I have to just say it flat out, a scammer. All right? Dating men who are just trying to scam you and have no interest in moving this situation any further. And one of the common things you find in these scenarios, and I want to make clear, it could be that he's out of the country long distance, another state long distance, and sometimes he's in your city, okay? And so it's not even that he's long distance. But what you notice with these men many times is that whereas in the first scenario, I gave you a man who's trying to initiate seeing you, this guy always has an excuse. This guy's never trying to make time to see you. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, if he's out the country or long distance, it's not that easy. Granted, it's not that easy, but a man who's into you and serious about you is going to want to come up with a plan. He's going to want to try to make time, make a way, some way, somehow. If he can't come to you, he'd want you to come to him. But if he's making no efforts to create a scenario where you two can see each other face to face, that's a huge red flag. So that's the reason why I had to add seeing you to the list, because yes, communication is great. Initiating contact is great. But if he's not taking it a step further with seeing you, that's a problem. And though I know this video was about the guy who's moving slow or maybe moving cautiously, I can't think of a scenario, and I'm not saying none ever exists because there's exceptions to every rule, but I cannot think of one where the guy really likes the woman, really is into her, and it isn't trying to find a way to have that person-to-person contact. So the third sign to look for when he seems to be moving slow or cautiously, but he is into you, is that he desires to provide for you. So I always use the word provide, and I always have to explain that when we say provide, we're not talking just money, okay? Providing is doing for you. So I think a better way to put this is he shows himself as wanting to be the man you can depend on, all right? When you need something done, he's offering help. Whether it's him helping you directly or him finding a way to get it done for you from somebody else, some way, somehow, he wants to come to your rescue. He's essentially trying to be your Superman, all right? And again, you will notice this with a guy who's doing this, even if he's not making a physical move on you, even if he's not being very clear about a relationship, that typically lends to him having a very strong desire, being secretly in love, whatever. He's into you, plain and simple. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you see this happen a lot of times also with male friends. Now, I'm not saying that there's no platonic situation where a male friend is trying to make himself available and be dependable to you. However, when there's a level of consistency there, in most cases, there's a level of feelings involved. I mean, I'm just going to be real. We can sit here and try to act like, no, it's nothing. It's just friendship. No, listen. A lot of scenarios involve one or the other. I'm talking about friendships. One of the other friends having feelings for the other person. Of course, there are plenty of real platonic friendships, but there are also plenty of one-sided and sometimes two-sided feelings, but neither is being very clear about it. And when you've met in a way or connected in a way that friendship was the avenue you had to take, the path you had to walk, that makes it harder to be very straightforward about your interests. And that's why I'm laying out for you signs to pay attention to, and then to dig deeper to get the clarity that we're looking for, all right? So when he's really being dependable, trying to make sure he's there for you, and then, yes, if he's quick to spend that money on you, that definitely is a strong sign of him being into you. Again, men, so I said earlier, men typically, when they're interested, give time and attention. That's a big deal for a lot of men, right? But money is too. So when he's coming out of his pocket, no problem. no issue. And I'm going to throw this out there because it's jumping in my head. You need money from him, and it's not even that he lends you money. He gives it to you. Like, he doesn't ask for the money, he gives you back. Now, pay attention to this one thing. If this is a man who is like this with everybody, then you can throw this sign out the window. All right? Then that could just mean that's just how he gets down. It's just who he is. But when you pick up on the fact that he's not this generous with everybody else, but he's sure extra generous with you. He sure makes sure you don't have to cover any tab when you guys are out and things of that nature. Then it's a good sign. It's a good sign to look into. All right, so now moving along to number 4, and the 4th sign is he wants to introduce you or bring you around friends and family. Okay, so again, and I always have to say this because I know women, when they hear the whole friends and family thing, they'll say, but they know of situations, you may know of some, where the man introduced the woman to the friends and family, and all the friends and family were in on the joke. I'm calling it a joke, but in on the fact that he wasn't that serious, or he had multiple women, or whatever the case may be, or it was just friendship. All possible. But again, we're going with what increases the chances that there is serious interest, that he's into you, despite the fact that he seems to be cautious in other ways. And so men generally, when they really like a woman, want friends or family to meet. And again, it may not be this formal, hey, I want you to meet my friends and family. Hey, I want you to meet my mother. It just may be, he'll find ways to bring you around them. He'll find ways to integrate you into that world, to include you in events. So it could be a family event, and he will willingly invite you to that event. It could be out with his friends, and again, he'll make sure that you're there, or he'll bring them around to you. Whatever it is, he's not ashamed to put you out in front of the people closest to him. That is typically a good sign, because again, when men are not serious about a woman in any kind of way, shape, or form, there tends to be a desire to keep things separate and keep her outside of his personal world. So when you see the opposite of that, then it's something to look more into. So now we get to number 5, and number 5, which is an extremely important one, is he's consistent. Plain and simple, he is consistent. Because listen, any man can call you a bunch of times for a few days. Any man can see you once here, once there. It's consistency, but it's also consistency with the variation of signs that I'm giving you here. So what I'm saying is, if he's consistent with calling you, right? But he seems to not be that dependable guy. He seems not to want to provide. He may want to see you, right? But he's not big on communicating with you. And what I'm saying here is, he may want to kick it with you, as in you come over, y'all hang out, which is good. But when people are really into each other, they want to communicate too. So even when we can't be with each other, we want to talk. When it's only we can talk when we can see each other, that's typically showing you something different. So when he is consistent with all these signs together, then yes, that is something that is showing you that he's really into you. And again, let me throw this in there now, because some of y'all might be thinking, well, why is someone who would be this consistent with all these things we've mentioned so far, we got a couple more to go, be a man who moves too slow? All right. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, some men are genuinely afraid. It's not to make their lack of action or their lack of being more transparent and straightforward a good or acceptable thing. I would want to encourage men to be more clear about their interests, their desires, and have a willingness to move things forward in a relationship. However, again, depending on the dynamic, depending on, for example, let me say this. There are some men who may have strong feelings for you very quickly. But let's just say in a previous situation, they expressed themselves very quickly, what they considered to be too soon, and it scared the woman off. Now, I would make the argument that if you express yourself and you're being genuine and there's a real connection there, whatever, it's not going to scare the person off in the sense of your expression scaring them off. The whole reality of how intensely things feel can become overwhelming for someone. But you simply speaking on it, if it scares them off, it's exposing a deeper issue. It's not really about you being honest about it. However, the man can internalize it that way. And now he becomes not as quick to say, let's be, in a committed relationship, or, I'm seriously interested in you, whatever the case may be. Now, let me make very clear, that doesn't mean as a woman you should accept this. Meaning, don't say to yourself, oh, okay, well, he's doing all these great things, and even though he's not being as clear, and as I mentioned earlier, he hasn't made a physical move, and his lack of making a physical move can be what he views as trying to show you respect, trying to show you that it's not about the physical, that he values you deeper than that. And that's the reason why he's not making the physical move. So don't make the mistake of assuming his lack of attempting things sexually, all right, or romantically in that way, is saying he's really not that interested. No, it doesn't mean that. I would argue that when he's really into you, there's a greater fear of moving too fast physically. There's a greater concern at the very least. Simply not that he doesn't want to, but he doesn't want you to take it the wrong way. And again, I don't want to confuse y'all, but listen, I have to also say that doesn't automatically mean the man who does make a move very fast isn't genuinely interested. But that's a whole nother discussion. We'll say that for a different time, okay? The bottom line is, just to get back to why a guy who is consistent like this would move slow or be cautious is, again, traumatized from past experiences, not wanting to scare you off, not wanting you to interpret him moving too fast as being crazy or disrespectful or anything like that. And so those are the reasons. And also, lastly, being unsure about how you feel. Because in some of these scenarios, the man's doing all these things. And what you have to understand is there are men who have been in situations where they did all these things and they thought the woman liked them too. Only to find out that when he finally had the strength, the balls to say something, she's like, no, I don't view you that way. And so now that becomes another layer of traumatization where it's like, yo, I don't know how much she's feeling me in return. So I'm trying to show her without saying it, hoping that she'll give me a green light that says she's into me too. Again, I'm not telling y'all that this is the right way for men to go about it or for anyone to go about it. I'm just explaining to you, this is what happens. This is why you can have these situations. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out right here, and I'll see you there. Do you feel like men are just a bunch of horny bastards? I mean, this is the complaint I hear from women, that men just want sex and they try so fast to get you into bed. What the